For years, Coraline Voss believed her fiancé had destroyed her life, stole her company, her name, and her trust. So she built an empire from the ashes, turning heartbreak into her sharpest weapon. But when the man she swore to ruin finally fell, a single letter revealed a truth more dangerous than any betrayal. He hadn't destroyed her to win. He had done it to save her. And now, every piece of her revenge might have been aimed at the only man who ever loved her. The sky over San Francisco was the color of bruised silk when Coraline Voss stepped out of the glass tower that had once felt like her second home. The city shimmered beneath the drizzle, neon reflected off wet asphalt, 1,000 lights whispering stories of ambition and deceit. For nearly 8 years, Coraline had poured her soul into Voss and Calder, the marketing firm she had co-founded with her fiancé, Ethan Calder. Together, they had built it from scratch, late nights fueled by ramen noodles and wild dreams, the kind of partnership people envied. Their photos had been featured in Forbes, their smiles bright, their hands intertwined like they had never known darkness. But that was before Coraline discovered that every late-night client call Ethan took wasn't business, it was betrayal. She found out the truth not through whispers, but through a headline, a glossy business magazine cover announcing Ethan Calder named sole CEO of Voss and Calder, visionary behind multi-million merger. Her name was nowhere. Not in the article, not in the credits, not even as a footnote. Coraline stared at the glossy page, her fingers trembling. She'd been erased, not just from the company, but from her own life's work. Ethan had filed quiet amendments to the firm's registration, moved funds, and staged board votes during her trip abroad. All legal, all carefully planned. And the woman standing beside him in that photo, Sabrina Hale, their lead financial strategist, wore the same silver pendant Coraline had once given him on their anniversary. The betrayal was complete. For the first time in years, Coraline didn't go home. She drove, no destination, just motion. The rain followed her, streaking the windshield like tears she refused to let fall. By midnight, she parked near the ocean, staring at the waves smashing against the rocks. Her phone buzzed. Ethan Calder. She stared at the name for a long time, then answered. "You saw the announcement." His voice was calm, too calm. "I was going to tell you." "Tell me what?" She cut him off. "That you took everything I built and put your name on it?" "It's not like that, Coraline." The board thought. "The board you manipulated," she hissed. "You forged my vote. You made me look irrelevant." Silence. Then Ethan said softly, "You made yourself irrelevant, Coraline. You stopped seeing the bigger picture. You were holding us back." The line went dead before she could respond. That night, something in her broke. But something else woke up. Over the next few weeks, Coraline vanished from public life. Her social accounts went silent. Her apartment emptied. Even her closest friends couldn't find her. The business world assumed she'd fled out of shame or heartbreak. But she hadn't fled. She was rebuilding. In a quiet apartment in Santa Barbara, Coraline began crafting something new, a company under a different name, Lenora Digital, funded by hidden savings and quiet allies from her old network who still believed in her. Her vision was sharper now, not just to create, but to expose. Every piece of data she gathered, every file she recovered from the servers Ethan thought he'd locked her out of, it was all part of her silent storm. And then she found something she hadn't expected. A file labeled Elysium Project. Encrypted, buried deep within the firm's archives. It wasn't one of hers, and yet, the code pattern looked familiar. She cracked it open late one night, and what she saw froze her blood. The project wasn't marketing. It was data manipulation, personal information from thousands of users repurposed to influence elections, disguised under market prediction algorithms. Illegal. Immoral. And Ethan's name was everywhere. For a moment, Coraline's revenge sharpened into something darker. She could destroy him with this. But the file's metadata revealed something else. Sabrina Hale had created most of it, and it traced back to foreign accounts, some under names Coraline didn't recognize. Who are you really, Sabrina? The puzzle deepened. What started as betrayal between lovers has now tangled into something corporate, criminal, and dangerous. A week later, Coraline received a letter. Not an email, but a physical envelope slipped under her door. No return address. Just a typewritten note. Stop digging into Elysium. You don't know who you're up against. No signature. But attached was a flash drive. Against her better judgment, Coraline loaded it into her laptop. The screen flickered, then displayed a single video, security footage. Her breath caught. It showed Ethan at a luxury villa, laughing with Sabrina, holding champagne. Then another figure entered the frame. A man Coraline didn't recognize, tall, wearing a navy suit, his face half-shadowed. Ethan shook his hand. Sabrina leaned in, whispered something, and the man smiled. The timestamp was recent, just 2 nights ago. Coraline hit pause. Zoomed in on the man's wrist, a distinctive tattoo, a serpent coiled around a key. She didn't know who he was yet. But she knew this. Ethan and Sabrina were in deeper than corporate ambition. And now someone was watching her. That night, as she closed her curtains, a reflection caught her eye, a glint of light from a parked car across the street. The same car she'd noticed for 3 days. Her pulse quickened. She turned off the lights, heart hammering, and reached for the phone. But before she could dial, a notification appeared on her laptop screen, a message that wasn't from any known contact. The message pulsed on the dark screen like a heartbeat. Unknown sender. You want revenge, Coraline? I can help you. For several seconds, she sat frozen, her fingers hovering above the keyboard. The apartment was silent except for the faint hum of the fridge and the rain whispering against the glass. Coraline's first instinct was to shut everything down. But curiosity, that dangerous ember, flared stronger than fear. She typed a single word. Who are you? No answer. Then, someone who knows what they did to you. Check your inbox. Her email pinged instantly. 1 message. No subject line. 1 attachment. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a single photo. Ethan Calder, standing at a marina beside the same tattooed man from the video. The caption beneath it read, "His name is Marcus Dren. Former intelligence contractor. He's running Elysium now." Coraline's throat tightened. If that was true, Ethan wasn't just stealing data, he was trafficking influence on a global scale. Another line appeared in the chat window. Unknown sender. You expose Elysium. You destroy him. But you'll need proof. Meet me. Pier 7. Midnight. She stared at the screen, heart pounding. Every instinct screamed trap, yet some deeper instinct whispered chance. At 11:47 p.m., wrapped in a dark coat, Coraline drove to the waterfront. Fog rolled in from the bay, swallowing the skyline. The pier lights flickered like nervous stars. A lone figure waited near the end of the dock, tall, shoulders squared, hood pulled low. When she approached, he lifted his head slightly. "Coraline Voss," he said. His voice was low, calm, but carried the weight of secrets. "I'm Lucas Rain." He offered a small flash drive between 2 fingers. "What's this?" she asked. "Proof. Financial routes, encrypted emails, and security footage. Enough to bury Calder and his friends if used right. And why give this to me?" Lucas's mouth curved slightly. "Because I once worked for him. And he tried to erase me, too." Coraline studied him, the faint scar near his temple, the steadiness in his eyes. He didn't look like someone bluffing. Still, she couldn't fully trust him. "Why me?" she pressed. "Because you have something he wants," Lucas said. "And because you're the only one who can walk into his world without being noticed." "What do I have?" He smiled faintly. "Access. The original encryption key. You created it 3 years ago for the firm's early client systems. They built Elysium on that skeleton. You can unlock it. You just don't know it yet." Coraline's pulse quickened. She had built the foundation of the system that now corrupted everything she stood for. "I'll help you find the rest," Lucas continued. "But after that, you'll have to choose justice or revenge. They're not the same." Before she could respond, distant footsteps echoed down the pier. 2 silhouettes appeared at the far end, dark suits moving fast. Lucas's expression hardened. "They followed you," He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward a side gate leading to the lower dock. The moment they ducked behind a stack of crates, a muffled voice shouted her name. Coraline Voss. Stop. Her breath hitched. The sound was unmistakable. Ethan. She turned, peering through the gaps. Ethan stood under the streetlight, eyes scanning the fog. He looked different, colder, sharper, a predator instead of a partner.
Come out, he called.
You don't know what you're playing with. Lucas's grip tightened on her wrist. He's not bluffing. We need to move. They slipped into the maze of warehouses. Sirens wailed in the distance. Maybe security, maybe worse. Lucas led her through a service door and down a narrow stairwell into the old maintenance tunnels beneath the pier. Only when they were surrounded by dripping concrete and silence did Coraline finally speak. What the hell just happened? He knew you'd come, Lucas said, breathing hard. They've been tracking your laptop since the day you opened that first file. Coraline felt the floor tilt beneath her. Then that message. Not from them. From me. But I used a compromised line. They must have traced it. She sank onto a cold metal step, adrenaline shaking her hands. So now he knows I'm alive, that I'm digging again. He always knew, Lucas said quietly. He was waiting for you to make a move. By dawn, they reached a safe house on the edge of the city, a derelict loft with boarded windows and a generator hum. Lucas connected the flash drive to an offline rig and started decrypting files. Coraline stood by the cracked window, watching the sunrise burn through the fog. What happens when we find the evidence? She asked. Then we decide who to trust. There are journalists, prosecutors, maybe a few people inside Calder's circle who still have a conscience. But if we leak too soon, they'll bury us both. She turned toward him. You sound like you've done this before. I have, he said simply. And it cost me everything. Something softened between them, a fragile current neither expected. Two broken pieces recognizing the same fracture. For the first time in weeks, Coraline allowed herself to exhale. But the peace was brief. The screen beeped. Decryption complete. Lines of text filled the monitor. Bank transfers, offshore ledgers, names, dates. And at the bottom, a final folder marked Phase 2. Lucas clicked it open. A blueprint appeared, not for software but for infrastructure. It showed a network of servers linked to hospitals, government data centers, and communication grids. Coraline stepped closer, horror creeping through her veins. They're not just selling data, she whispered. They're controlling information itself. Lucas looked at her, his expression unreadable. Elysium isn't a project. It's a weapon. And then, a second alert flashed across the screen. Remote access initiated. Someone else was inside the system. Lucas yanked the power cable, killing the machine. The room plunged into darkness, the generator sputtering. Too late, he said. They know where we are. Outside, the sound of tires screeched against gravel. Headlights cut through the boarded slats. Coraline's heart raced. What do we do? Lucas reached for a small case under the table and handed her a burner phone. Run if you can't reach me. I'll find you. He opened a hidden door at the back of the loft that led to an alleyway drenched in morning fog. Coraline hesitated, torn between instinct and trust, then stepped through. The moment she turned back, the loft window shattered. Gunfire ripped through the silence. When Coraline stopped running, she was half a mile away, her breath burning in her chest. She ducked behind a delivery truck and dialed the burner. No answer. Static. Then, a single line of text appeared on the phone screen. Keep the drive safe. Trust no one, not even me.
L.
Her knees weakened. The sirens grew louder, closing in. Somewhere between betrayal and survival, Coraline realized the truth. She wasn't chasing revenge anymore. She was inside a war she never meant to start. Dawn broke cold and colorless over the city. From a cracked motel window, Coraline watched light creep along the distant bay, like an accusation. She hadn't slept. The flash drive lay on the bedside table beside a half-empty coffee cup, a sliver of plastic holding the weight of a revolution and a life she no longer recognized. She replayed the night over and over. Lucas's voice, the gunfire, his last message, trust no one. It echoed like a warning and a farewell. Every few minutes, she checked the burner phone. Nothing. No signal, no text. The silence gnawed at her nerves. Coraline's instincts told her to disappear again, but her heart refused to let go. Lucas had risked his life for this, for her, and something in his eyes before the chaos had felt too real to ignore. She opened the flash drive, scanning its directory one last time. The files were corrupted now, half encrypted, half missing. Only a single new folder had appeared, one she hadn't seen before, Vault 9. It contained a single video file labeled final_key, MOV. Coraline hesitated, then clicked. The screen filled with static. Then, Lucas's face appeared, filmed hastily, his expression taut and urgent. If you're watching this, I didn't make it out. Listen carefully. Elysium isn't just Ethan's. He's a puppet. The one running it is Marcus Dren, and he's working under a contract called Ghost Protocol. It ties corporate systems to defense networks. They're turning data into leverage, controlling markets, policies, people. I left breadcrumbs inside this drive. Follow them. But once you do, you'll see names you wish you hadn't. He paused, eyes narrowing, as if he could feel someone watching. And Coraline, trust your instincts, not your heart. The video cut to black. For a long time, she sat there, numb, the hum of the city filtering through the thin walls. Not your heart. It stung more than she wanted to admit. By midday, she was driving north, following the digital trail Lucas had buried in the flash drive, coded coordinates pointing toward Port Angeles, a small coastal town near the Canadian border. The route was scenic but lonely, winding through misty forests that swallowed the road whole. Her thoughts drifted between fury and fear. Every memory of Ethan felt like a wound reopening. His laugh, the warmth of his hand on hers when they were planning their future, the illusion of trust. Now she wondered if every touch, every word had been rehearsed. By nightfall, she reached a decaying warehouse near the docks, the coordinates' final point. Inside, the air smelled of rust and salt. Her flashlight beam danced over rows of abandoned crates and machines. Then she saw it, a metallic case bolted to the floor, marked with the same serpent and key symbol she'd seen on Marcus's wrist. Her pulse kicked. She knelt, prying open the locks one by one. Inside was a small server rig still running on auxiliary power. Lines of code scrolled across the tiny screen, displaying fragments of data transfers, account numbers, and communications logs. And then, a file name blinked on the screen. C. Voss, Secondary Protocol. Coraline froze. Her name. She opened it. What she saw made her blood run cold. It was a file created 4 years ago, digitally signed by Ethan Calder. It wasn't just a business document. It was an authorization file, linking her old encryption code to Elysium's core, without her consent. In the logs, Ethan had framed her as the creator of the system's deepest layer. On paper, she was the architect of Ghost Protocol, a convenient scapegoat. The realization hit like a blade. Ethan hadn't just stolen her company. He'd weaponized her name, her genius, and turned it into a shield for his crimes. The betrayal felt fresh all over again. The metallic creak of footsteps shattered the silence. Coraline swung her flashlight toward the sound. A shadow moved between the crates. Slow, deliberate. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hand. The figure stepped into the light. "Still chasing ghosts, Coraline?"
Ethan.
He looked the same, immaculate, composed, but his eyes held something colder now. Calculation. "How did you find me?" she asked. "You're predictable," he said. "You always chase truth like it's redemption." He took a slow step closer. "You could have walked away. I would have let you live quietly. But you couldn't resist looking, could you?" "I'm not the one hiding crimes behind my fiancé's name," Coraline snapped. Ethan smiled faintly. "Ah, so Lucas told you. I warned him you'd ruin everything. He cared too much." Her breath caught. "What did you do to him?" Ethan tilted his head. "He made a deal with the wrong devil. Don't look at me like that, he knew the risks." "You killed him." "I cleaned up a liability." His voice was ice. Something in Coraline broke. Not the way it had been the night of the magazine cover. That had been grief. This was fire. "You always underestimated me," she whispered. "And you always thought emotions make you strong," Ethan countered. "They make you weak. That's why you'll never win." Coraline stepped back toward the server case. "Maybe. But this time, I brought the truth with me." She pressed a hidden button on her wristwatch, a device Lucas had slipped her that night at the pier. The warehouse lights flickered, and Ethan's phone buzzed violently in his pocket. "What did you live stream?" Coraline said quietly. "To every major outlet, every investor, every partner. Say hello to your audience." Ethan's composure cracked for the first time. "You wouldn't." "Oh, I would." The rig behind her whirred louder, uploading everything. Files, recordings, signatures, even the confrontation unfolding now. But before she could feel victory, a sharp click echoed behind her. Marcus Dren stepped out of the shadows, a pistol trained on her back. "End the broadcast," he said. Ethan exhaled with relief. "About time." Marcus's gaze was colder than stone. "You should have listened to the warning, Miss Voss. Now you're both liabilities." Ethan blinked. "Both." Marcus smiled faintly and turned the gun on him. "You were never more than a tool." The shot was deafening. Ethan fell without a word. Coraline flinched, the taste of metal in her mouth. Marcus advanced slowly, gun still raised. "You have something that belongs to me," he said. "The drive." Coraline's hand tightened around her watch. Behind her, the upload meter reached 98%. Marcus noticed. His tone sharpened. "Turn it off." "Or what?" she asked, meeting his gaze. He stepped closer. "Or I make sure your story ends right here." Coraline smiled faintly, a calm born of fury and heartbreak. Maybe it already did. She pressed the final command. The upload hit 100%. The rig's lights surged, then went dark. Somewhere across the world, the files dispersed, mirrored, backed up, untouchable. Marcus realized it too late. He swung the gun toward her, but the explosion from the server's overload knocked them both backward. Fire and sparks filled the air. When Coraline crawled to her feet, Marcus was gone, vanished into the smoke. Ethan lay still. The drive was half melted, and outside, sirens wailed again, drawing closer. She stumbled into the dawn light, blood on her palms, the horizon burning with the same orange as her rage. Somewhere behind her, the empire that had stolen everything was beginning to crumble, but the war wasn't over. Because Marcus Dren was still alive. And he had taken something far more dangerous than her company. He'd taken Lucas. Coraline stood before the glass wall of her penthouse, the city skyline glowing like fractured stars beneath the night. For the first time in years, she wasn't chasing anyone, not revenge, not love, not redemption. Just silence. Just breathe. Yet beneath that calm exterior, the world she had built, the empire forged from heartbreak and betrayal, was about to meet its reckoning. The investigation into Evan's company had gone public. Every transaction, every falsified report, every stolen contract, now headline news. The media called it the Voss exposure after she anonymously tipped off the authorities using data she'd once buried to protect herself. Irony at its finest. But the part no one knew? Evan wasn't the only one under scrutiny. Lila, her former friend turned rival, had been complicit, feeding false numbers to protect Evan while pretending loyalty to Coraline. When Lila's name flashed across the news as an executive collaborator, Coraline's pulse barely shifted. She didn't celebrate. She simply whispered, "Justice doesn't always scream. It sometimes whispers through ruin." Still, justice didn't erase memory. A week later, as rain streaked the glass, Coraline received a letter. Not an email, not a call, a handwritten note delivered by courier. The handwriting stopped her cold. "Evans. Coraline, I know there's no apology vast enough to fix what I shattered. I didn't understand the cost of my ambition until it took everything worth having. I see now that you were the empire, not the prize. I'm leaving the city tonight. maybe forever. If you ever want to see the truth behind my choices, there's a box in the old greenhouse. You'll know where. She shouldn't have gone. Logic said leave it. Like ghosts stay buried. But Coraline had never been a woman of half measures. The greenhouse stood at the edge of the estate they once called home, a place wrapped in ivy and silence. She unlocked the rusted door. Inside, the scent of damp soil and old memories filled the air. The box lay beneath a broken marble table, sealed and heavy. Inside, a stack of faded photos, a silver locket she once lost, and a USB drive. Back in her penthouse, she opened the door. A video file blinked to life. Evan's face appeared older, worn, stripped of arrogance. If you're watching this, it means the truth finally surfaced. Coraline, I didn't betray you for money. The board blackmailed me, threatened your research, your patent, your safety. I made a deal to keep you untouched. Every choice after that was a chain reaction I couldn't stop. I wanted to tell you, but you would have walked through fire to fight them, and I couldn't let that happen. Her throat tightened. You liar, she whispered, but the conviction faltered. When you see everything fall apart, remember this wasn't vengeance. It was survival. I'm sorry I made you a weapon. You deserved peace, not war. The screen went dark. Tears blurred her reflection. All these years, she had lived fueled by the belief that he destroyed her to climb higher. Now she saw a man destroyed long before she ever struck back. Still, forgiveness was not an instinct, it was a journey. And Coraline Voss had only just begun hers. Days later, she attended the final hearing of Evan's trial. He stood pale but dignified. When their eyes met, the world fell quiet. No hatred, no longing, just the unspoken acknowledgement that both had lost and learned in equal measure. Outside the courthouse, a journalist shouted, "Ms. Voss, is it true you were behind the exposure?" Coraline smiled faintly. Some truths reveal themselves. Others simply find their way home. Then she walked away. Months passed. Her company flourished, not as an empire of retribution, but of innovation and integrity. She launched a foundation for women rebuilding careers after betrayal and financial abuse, a tribute to the woman she once was. One evening, while closing her laptop, she saw a message notification. It was from an unknown sender. No text, just a photo of the old greenhouse, restored and blooming again. Her lips curved softly. "You finally learned how to grow something without destruction," she murmured, closing the screen. Outside, rain began again, but this time, it didn't feel like morning. It felt like a rebirth. Coraline stood by the window, her reflection merging with the night, and whispered to the city that had witnessed her fall and rise. Love built me. Betrayal refined me. Revenge freed me. But forgiveness, that's what made me whole. As thunder rolled in the distance, she turned off the lights, leaving only the city's reflection shimmering across her face, half in shadow, half in light. The story of Coraline Voss ended not with vengeance or victory, but with balance, where pain and peace finally learned to coexist.